They fined me $750 for unauthorized outdoor cooking, taped the notice right to my grill lid like a trophy. 3 days later, an email arrived stamped "Final Warning," threatening lien proceedings over the smell of steak and disruptive social behavior. That was the moment I decided to document everything. Welcome to HOA Society. My name's Luke Bennett, and I've spent 15 years as a municipal code analyst in Asheville, North Carolina, writing the very ordinances these boards like to misquote. If you're new here, hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens when a homeowners association crosses the wrong guy. And tell me where you're watching from. I've got a feeling this story will sound familiar to a lot of you. I bought the cabin last August, 1,120 square feet, cedar siding, backed up to the lake, one of only 6 homes inside Echo Pines HOA. My wife, Sarah, used to say it smelled like calm. After she passed from a sudden aneurysm in 2021, I promised our daughter Emma we'd keep it as our safe place. I didn't know that promise would become a fight for our sanity. It started small, a note about our mailbox height, non-compliant by 1.5 inches, then a warning about unauthorized exterior lighting. They said my porch lamp was too bright. I'd lived in subdivisions my whole career, knew the rhythm of bureaucracy, but this was different. Their president, Carol Maddox, had a grin that could cut paper, the type who quoted bylaws like scripture. The day she came strutting up my driveway with 2 board members and a clipboard, the gravel popped like gunfire under her heels. "Mr. Bennett," she said, "grilling is prohibited outside of community-designated events. You're creating smoke intrusion." I gestured at the open lake air. She leaned closer, perfume sharp as disinfectant. "We maintain standards. You don't make exceptions." That night, I sat on the porch with my teak cooling, flipping through the HOA's Declaration of Covenants. Article 7, Section 4, had no such clause. In fact, it granted reasonable personal recreational use of decks and patios. I highlighted it in yellow, snapped a time-stamped photo, and saved it in a folder called Due Process. I'd been a widower for 2 years. This wasn't the first time I'd fought to keep something that felt like home. The next morning, Carol's SUV blocked my mailbox. She stood in my yard talking to a code inspector I knew from work, Mike Grayson. He looked embarrassed. "Luke," he said, "they're alleging you built an unpermitted fire feature." I pointed to the store-bought Weber. He shrugged. "I have to write a notice." He mouthed, "Sorry." Carol smirked. "We'll expect payment within 10 days. 10 days. They'd picked that number to sound official. I spent the weekend scanning documents, purchase receipts, HOA meeting minutes from before I moved in, even the county parcel maps. A pattern started to form. Echo Pines HOA hadn't renewed their environmental use agreement with the county since 2016. That meant any enforcement tied to open fire restrictions was unenforceable. Still, I kept quiet. The key in battles like this is patience. The more rope they use, the easier the knot slips around them. I logged every incident, dates, times, quote snippets. Emma watched from the window as Carol measured the grass height with a ruler. "Dad, why do they hate us?" she asked. "They don't," I said. "They just think they can tell us what home means." When I replayed the doorbell cam footage later, I noticed Carol never entered the property line, but her secretary did, twice to post the notice. That mattered. In North Carolina, any entry beyond the boundary for non-delivery purposes can count as trespass. I emailed the footage to my lawyer friend, Dana Cole, municipal law, coffee addict, eternally ink stay, and cuffs. She replied at 11:43 p.m. "Keep filming. This isn't about the grill." By the next board meeting, rumors had started. Someone claimed I was hosting parties. Someone else said unregistered tenants. None of it true. Carol read my name like an indictment. "Certain residents believe they're above the charter," she said into the mic. My neighbor Joe leaned over and whispered, "She's making an example of you." After the meeting, Joe offered me a beer in his garage. "She fined me last year for a flower pot color," he said, cracking the can. "Charged $100 because it wasn't earth tone." He laughed without humor. "You planning to fight?" "I plan to out-document her," I said. He raised an eyebrow. "You serious?" I nodded. Every statute, Every permit, every tax lien she's ever filed, I'll map it." He grinned. "You sound like you're back at work. Maybe that's what it'll take." That night, I opened a spreadsheet titled Echo Control Matrix. Column A, Rule. Column B, Statute Cited. Column C, Enforcement Authority. Within 2 hours, I'd already flagged 6 false citations and 1 fabricated signature from a supposed architectural subcommittee that didn't exist. The next morning, I printed them in triplicate and placed them in a binder. On the spine, I wrote property rights, Bennett, Lot 4. As the sun rose, I heard footsteps outside. Carol again, camera in hand, photographing my recycling bins. I lifted my phone, filmed calmly, timestamp 7:06 a.m. She hissed, "You can't record me." Knowledge nugget number 1. In one-party consent states like North Carolina, recording in public or on your own property is fully lawful for documentation. I smiled. "Actually, Carol, I can." Her face flushed the same red as her blazer. "You'll regret this," she said. Maybe, but not the way she thought. She stormed off down the path, heels punching little divots in the gravel, muttering something about escalation. I watched her back straighten as she spotted 2. HOA patrol car idling by the mailbox. 2 deputies stepped out, new uniforms, not locals I recognized. Carol waved them over like she was directing traffic. "There," she said, pointing at me. "That's the man." The taller deputy walked up slow, one hand on his belt. "Sir, we received a report of a disturbance, grilling, possible fire code violation." His tone was neutral, professional. I showed him the Weber, cold and covered. "No open flame, officer. I was eating breakfast." Carol interrupted. "He's lying. The smell was strong enough to trigger my allergies." He glanced from her to me. "Do you have any documentation of that, ma'am?" She sputtered. "I am the documentation." I handed him my folder. "Here's the section of the HOA covenant that authorizes individual outdoor cooking, and here's the county fire permit registry. No restrictions in effect." He looked it over, nodded once, then turned to her. "Ma'am, nothing unlawful here. HOA disputes are civil, not criminal. We're done." Her face twisted like a storm cloud. "You'll hear from our attorney," she snapped. As the cruiser pulled away, Joe whistled from across the street. "You just outlawyered the law." "Not yet," I said, "but I'll need a bigger binder." By Monday, 3 more notices appeared. Noise complaint, unapproved window covering, and vehicle parked facing the wrong direction. Each was backdated by 2 days, a subtle trick. I scanned and logged them all, cross-referencing the signature pattern. It matched Carol's handwriting perfectly. She wasn't even bothering to hide it. Midweek, Dana called. "Luke, remember that expired environmental use agreement you found?" I traced the renewal request. Turns out Carol never filed it with the county clerk because she listed herself as both applicant and witness. That's a conflict under the Common Interest Act. I grinned. "Meaning every enforcement tied to it is invalid." "Meaning," Dana said, "if you wanted to push, you could claim damages for harassment." "Not yet. Let her dig." At the next board meeting, Carol's voice shook from the podium. "We have a chronic violator among us. Someone who refuses to uphold our values." She gestured at me. "This community was built on uniformity." I rose, calm as a judge. "Uniformity isn't the same as lawfulness." "You don't get to speak," she said. I smiled. "Actually, Section 5.2 grants floor rights to any homeowner under new business. You signed that bylaw amendment yourself on April 9th, 2019. The room went silent. Someone coughed. She flushed. "We'll discuss this privately." I sat back down, heart steady. Joe gave a small thumbs up. That night, I added her quote, "Uniformity isn't lawfulness," to the header of my documentation folder. Every battle needs its motto. A few days later, an envelope arrived marked "Confidential." Inside was a glossy photo of my daughter walking home from the bus stop. No note, just the picture. My stomach dropped. I checked the camera footage. No one visible. I called the sheriff's office. Deputy Harris took the report, his brow furrowed. "Could be intimidation. Keep everything logged." Emma sensed it. "Dad, are we safe here?" "Yeah," I said, kneeling beside her. "That's why I'm writing all this down, to make it safe." I sent the photo to Dana, who ran it through metadata analysis. "Luke," she said the next morning, "timestamp shows 3:18 p.m., Thursday. Same time Carol was logged into the HOA Zoom meeting. So either she had someone do it, or she's orchestrating through the board." I exhaled. Time to dig deeper. I spent the next weekend combing through county filings. Carol's name popped up in surprising places. 3 LLCs tied to service contracts, landscaping, maintenance, and insurance brokerage. Each billed Echo Pines HOA directly, sometimes twice for the same work. I printed everything, color-coded tabs by entity, clipped receipts. Knowledge nugget number 2. Most states require HOAs to disclose any financial interest board members hold in vendors. Failure to recuse from votes is a breach of fiduciary duty under state law. Joe and I met at the diner off Route 9. He slid a mug across. So she's lining her pockets while fining us for mailbox paint? Exactly, I said. And if we get the county auditor involved, she's cooked. He chuckled. You ever thought of running the board? I shook my head. I just want peace. Peace doesn't file paperwork, he said. That line stuck with me. Peace doesn't file paperwork, but justice does. By the next week, the harassment escalated. 3 wellness checks requested anonymously, a fake noise complaint at midnight, and a Facebook post accusing me of threatening board members. I answered none of it. I just documented. Every citation went into the log with timestamps and response copies. Late Friday, Dana emailed. Got something interesting. HOA's master insurance policy expires June 30th. Renewal requires verified compliance with county permits. I blinked. That was it, the lever. If the HOA couldn't certify compliance, the insurer could suspend coverage. No coverage, no enforcement authority. Reversal number 1 was forming quietly in my head. I wouldn't tell anyone yet, not even Joe. Before I shut my laptop, I added one last column to the spreadsheet labeled Pressure Points. Under it, I typed, Insurance, June 30th. Then I saved the file and leaned back, listening to the crickets outside, feeling the first real shift of power. For those watching, have you ever dealt with an HOA that crossed this line? Drop your story or your strategy in the comments. Let's see how many of us they've tried to silence. By the time June rolled in, the air was thick with humidity and suspicion. Carol's SUV slowed each morning at the end of my drive like a patrol car without lights. I'd installed a small GoPro on Thow's Porch post. Nothing dramatic, just another eye. Every morning it clicked once when motion triggered. That sound became my alarm clock. Dana called midweek. You're certain about the insurance clause? Positive, I said, flipping through my binder. Paragraph 12B. Coverage contingent on current environmental compliance. They're 5 years lapsed. Then keep calm until June 29th, she said. Let them send one more violation. You'll need contemporaneous evidence for the state's ombuds filing. I nodded, even though she couldn't see. My pulse thrummed steady, like a countdown clock. That Friday, Carol delivered again. A thick packet stapled with red ink across the top. Final notice of violation. Immediate remediation required. It listed 14 infractions, including improper porch ornamentation and unapproved outdoor rug pattern. I laughed, genuine this time. 14, I muttered. Lucky number. Each line item got a fresh log entry, photo proof, and cross-reference to the bylaws. Joe came over that night holding 2 beers. You look like a man running an audit. I am, I said, a moral one. He grinned, then frowned at the folder. You sure this doesn't get dangerous? It already is, I said, glancing toward the road. But the trick is to stay predictable. Bureaucracies panic when you stay calm. Saturday morning I met Dana downtown. She'd spread my documentation across a diner booth, marking sections with neon tabs. This, she said, tapping a page, is your foundation. She slid me a single-page draft titled, Assignment of Policy Rights. Conditional Notice. Fill this in on June 29th, notarize, and file with the county recorder, she said. It assigns the HOA's insurance renewal rights to you under the doctrine of subrogated interest. Legal, technical, boring, but devastating. Meaning when the insurer asks for compliance proof, they'll have to call you. I smiled. Perfect. Knowledge nugget number 3. Under most HOA master policies, any homeowner listed as an insured beneficiary may lawfully receive notice of renewal requirements. Assignments of interest are rare, but binding when recorded. The following week stretched like wet rope. Emma's summer camp started, and each morning she waved before boarding the bus. I tried to hide my nerves. I was counting down days, not for a vacation, but for an expiration. Carol, sensing something, doubled her efforts. 2 more citations arrived. One for failure to maintain landscaping, even though the grass was trimmed to exactly 3 inches. Another for visible clutter, referring to Emma's bike leaning against the porch rail. Each notice made the case stronger. Each one was another paper bullet misfired. Late June 27th, I drove by the community notice board. A new sign hung crooked. Special emergency meeting. June 30th, 6:00 p.m. Insurance renewal discussion. I took a photo, timestamp 7:48 p.m. They knew the renewal was in jeopardy. They didn't know I was already holding the fuse. That night, Joe stopped by again, carrying a box of old files. "Figured you might want these," he said. "Minutes from 2016 to 2019. I kept copies when I was treasurer." I flipped through. Buried in 2018 was a motion titled Temporary Insurance Reassignment for Liability Review, signed by Carol herself. I couldn't believe my luck. "Joe," I said, "this clause authorizes external assignment under homeowner consent." He blinked. "So what's that mean in English?" "It means she gave me the precedent I need." On June 29th, the morning air smelled of pine and possibility. I drove to the courthouse with my folder on the passenger seat. The clerk recognized me. "Property filing?" "Assignment of interest," I said. "Echo Pines HOA Master Policy." She stamped it. Recorded 9:12 a.m., June 29th, 2023. The thunk of that stamp felt like a gunshot muffled by paperwork. Visual beat number 1, the red-stamped deed sliding across the counter. Ink bleeding slightly from the pressure. "Ma'am," Hensley interrupted, calm but firm. "As of this notice, all enforcement actions tied to non-renewed permits are suspended. You may not issue further fines or assessments until compliance is verified." He handed her a printed notice, official seal gleaming. Visual beat number 2. The paper landing flat on the podium, the seal glinting under fluorescent light, Carol's reflection warped in its surface. The room erupted. Homeowners whispered. Some laughed quietly. Joe clapped once, slow and deliberate. "Guess the meeting's adjourned, huh?" Carol looked ready to combust. "You set me up," she hissed. "No," I said. "You set yourself up. I just read the fine print." As the crowd thinned, Carol slammed her binder shut. "You think this is over? You embarrassed me in front of everyone." I leaned close enough that only she could hear. "You embarrassed yourself by treating neighbors like tenants." Outside, the evening smelled of ozone. The first drops of rain hit the asphalt as I loaded my binder into the truck. Joe jogged over, laughing breathlessly. "That was cinematic, man. You just dismantled an HOA with a piece of paper." "Paperwork built this mess," I said. "Paperwork can end it." We stood in silence for a moment, rain speckling the gravel. I felt the adrenaline fade, replaced by something steadier, a quiet satisfaction. The next morning, the Echo Pines Facebook page exploded. Posts about illegal fines, board overreach, and insurance fraud piled up. I stayed silent. Let the narrative breathe. Dana called around noon. "I saw the compliance filing, beautifully executed." "Thanks," I said. "Now what?" "Now," she said, "you wait for the dominoes." She was right. Within 48 hours, 3 board members resigned. The insurer suspended renewal pending audit. The local paper picked up the story. Resident exposes HOA permit lapse. County launches review. CA. Roll's face wasn't named, but everyone knew. The harassment stopped overnight. No more notices, no more drive-bys. Just silence, the kind that feels earned. But I knew better than to think it was over. People like Carol don't vanish. They regroup. That week, Emma brought home a flyer from school. Community fair, sponsored by Echo Pines HOA. I almost laughed. "They're still trying PR," I said. She shrugged. "Can we go?" "Maybe," I said, flipping the paper over. "Might be interesting to see how reform looks in daylight." For everyone watching, where's the limit for HOA fines in your eyes? $250, $500, $1,000? At what point does it stop being maintenance and start being extortion? Let's get that line drawn in the comments. 2 weeks passed before the silence cracked again. A plain envelope appeared in my mailbox. No return address, postmarked locally. Inside, a photocopy of a petition for removal, citing me as disruptive to community harmony. At the bottom, 7 signatures, 3 of them from board members who'd already resigned. It was almost funny. Dana wasn't amused. "They're trying to reconstitute the board illegally," she said over the phone. "Vacated positions require an election, not appointments. I'll file a cease and desist." "Let them play pretend," I said, sliding the document into my binder. "Every move they make now just builds my case." Still, I could feel it, the itch of retaliation. The HOA's website posted a new compliance reminder listing unauthorized recording devices, a not-so-subtle shot at my porch camera. The next day, I found a code inspector's card wedged in my screen door. Courtesy notice. Noise observation. They'd started another campaign. So I doubled down. I began keeping a night log. Every motion light, every car slowing near my driveway, every anonymous call logged with the sheriff's timestamp. Joe joined me some evenings, offie in hand. "You ever get tired of being right?" he joked. "Mostly, I get tired of being patient," I said. Driving home, I rehearsed my next move. I'd let them gather tomorrow, let Carol make her speech about responsibility and compliance, and then present the recorded assignment. The state's compliance officer, notified by Dana, would already be on standby to validate. I parked, stepped onto the porch, and exhaled. For the first time in months, the air didn't taste of stress. By evening, Carol's SUV idled again by my mailbox. She stayed inside this time, window cracked. The sound of her phone drifted out, something about coverage gap and emergency call Monday. I smiled quietly. She had no idea Monday wouldn't matter. As the sun dropped behind the lake, Emma came out in her pajamas, holding her stuffed otter. "You're winning, right, Dad?" "Winning's not the goal," I said. "But I think we're finally being heard." She hugged me around the waist. The porch light flickered, moths circling. I thought of Sarah, her voice telling me once, "You don't fight for peace. You document it." So I documented. Before bed, I typed one final note into my log. June 30th, reckoning. And to everyone following this story, answer me this. How far should an HOA control what happens on your porch, your lawn, your weekend? Where's that line between community and control? Leave your thoughts below. I'll be reading. June 30th arrived gray and heavy, like the sky knew something was about to break. By 5:45 p.m., the Echo Pines Community Hall buzzed with folding chairs scraping concrete and the nervous chatter of 20 homeowners. I sat in the second row, my binder on my lap, the stamped deed inside like a hidden blade. Carol stood at the front wearing a coral blazer and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," she began. "As you know, our insurance renewal is pending, and certain residents," her gaze locked on me, "have created unnecessary delays by misinterpreting our documents." A few heads turned. Joe sat 2 rows behind me, arms folded, expression unreadable. Carol continued, voice tight. "To protect our community, the board is voting to impose a temporary surcharge, an additional $180 per home, to expedite the renewal process." Murmurs rippled. Someone whispered, "We already paid last quarter." I raised my hand. "Madam President, before you move that motion, I have a question about authority." Her smile froze. "You're not recognized." "Under Section 5.2, I said, "any homeowner may question the legality of a financial motion exceeding 10% of prior year assessments. This surcharge is 23. Her nostrils flared. "You're out of order." "That's the problem," I said, standing. "The whole system's been out of order since 2016. A low hum spread through the room. I opened my binder, sliding out the recorded page. "This," I said, holding it up, "is a notarized assignment of the HOA's insurance policy renewal rights, recorded with the county yesterday at 9:12 a.m. The gasp that followed was real, sharp as a dropped plate. Carol blinked, confused, like she'd misheard. "You... what?" "I filed it under your own 2018 precedent." I tapped the old minutes Joe had found. "The one you signed to authorize external reassignment in emergencies. That precedent's binding." A few board members looked panicked. One whispered, "Is that even legal?" "Yes," I said, "because our master policy lists all homeowners as insured parties. I'm acting under subrogated interest until the compliance issue is resolved." Right on cue, the door opened. A tall man in khakis and a county badge stepped in, clipboard under one arm. "Evening, folks. Mark Hensley, County Compliance Division." He nodded to me. "Mr. Bennett, thanks for calling ahead. We received confirmation the HOA's environmental permit expired in 2016. Renewal required before any insurance certification." Carol's mouth opened, shut, then opened again. "This is absurd. You can't just—" By late July, Carol's name resurfaced online. Rumors she was meeting with a new law firm. And sure enough, 3 days later, a certified letter arrived from the Maddox Legal Group, PLLC. Inside, a formal demand to remove defamatory online content and unauthorized video surveillance infringing on HOA privacy. I read it twice, then called Dana. She laughed outright. "Luke, she used her own name as the firm. There's no bar registration for that entity. That's impersonation of legal authority." "Which makes the letter itself evidence," I said. "Exactly." Knowledge nugget number 4. Under U.S. Code 912, falsely representing oneself as an attorney or government agent in written communication constitutes a federal offense if intended to intimidate or obtain advantage. I logged the letter, copied it to a flash drive, and filed a report with the county ombuds. The system was slow, but paperwork had gravity. It sank deeper each day, until even the stubborn truth couldn't float back up. The following week, the harassment montage reached its peak. 3 new citations appeared overnight. A dead plant left on my porch with a tag reading, "Non-compliant landscaping," and someone spray-painted, "Rules Matter" across my mailbox. Emma saw it first. Her voice cracked. "Dad, they hate us." I knelt beside her. "No, sweetheart, they're scared." She frowned. "Of what?" "Of people who read the fine print." That night after she went to bed, I sat on the porch and felt something shift, fear transmuting into clarity. I wasn't just defending my house anymore. I was defending the idea that community couldn't be a weapon. Joe stopped by around 10, shaking his head. "You planning to paint that mailbox tonight?" "Not yet. Let the paint dry on their fear first." He grinned. "That's cold." "Just measured," I said. The next morning, I found an email from the county. "Preliminary audit resu. LT's scheduled for public review, August 12th. That was my opening. The insurer's audit and the county's hearing would overlap. Perfect. I called Dana. "We go public that day." "Agreed," she said. "Bring your binder. Bring the receipts." I did more than that. I printed 30 extra copies of the expired permit, stapled to the fraudulent invoices from Carol's LLCs. Then I rehearsed my remarks, word for word. Visual beat number 3. Forming in my mind, me at the podium, the rain beating on a microphone, the binder snapping shut like a verdict. Before the hearing, I had a quiet moment with Emma. "After this," I said, "things might change around here." "Good change or bad?" she asked. "Both," I said, "but it starts clean." And to everyone following this story, when HOAs use rules as a weapon, citations, letters, shaming, what's the right way to push back? Buy leverage? Or go straight to court? Comment your strategy. Some of you might need it sooner than you think. That night, I stood in front of the mirror, tying my old courtroom tie, the one I'd worn the day Sarah and I closed on the cabin. It still smelled faintly of cedar and toner. My hands shook once, then steadied. Tomorrow wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about proof. The hearing room at the county administration building smelled of coffee and laminate flooring. Fluorescent lights hummed above a semicircle of officials seated behind nameplates. At 9 a.m. sharp, the clerk called Echo Pines Homeowners Association Permit and Compliance Review. Carol entered last, her coral blazer traded for navy this time, jaw tight. She carried her own binder, thicker, newer, desperate. I caught her glance at mine and the way her eyes flickered when she saw the red county stamp on the cover. Dana leaned toward me. "Remember, calm is credibility." I nodded, flipping open to my first tab. The chairwoman, Ms. Talbot, cleared her throat. "Mr. Bennett, you submitted the initial complaint alleging permit lapse and misappropriation of enforcement authority." "Yes, ma'am," I said. All evidence is included in the record, tab 1 through tab 5. Carol interjected. With respect, this is a vendetta. He's been harassing the board with baseless accusations. Talbot raised a hand. Ms. Maddox, you'll have your turn. Mr. Bennett, proceed. I outlined the timeline calmly. The expired environmental use agreement since 2016, the false citations, the unauthorized fines, and finally, the forged letter from the non-existent Maddox Legal Group, each point backed by documents, timestamps, and cross-referenced signatures. I even played a short clip of Carol instructing her assistant to find anything on his property that looks non-standard. When it ended, silence. The air felt heavier, the way it does before a thunderclap. Talbot looked at Carol. Ms. Maddox, is this your voice? Carol hesitated. It's taken out of context. Context, Talbot said evenly, doesn't alter expiration dates or missing filings. The compliance officer, Hensley, entered a note into the record. Recommendation, suspend all HOA enforcement powers pending audit outcome. Carol's mask cracked. You can't do that. We have authority. Hensley replied, not without permits you don't. A smattering of claps rose from the gallery, homeowners who'd shown up after months of fines and fear. Joe whistled low, then caught my eye and grinned. That's when I presented the final piece, one I hadn't told anyone about, not even Dana. Madam Chair, I'd like to submit Exhibit G. I slid forward a thin manila folder containing a recorded assignment of liability rights. Under paragraph 12C of the master policy, this document transfers coverage responsibility back to individual homeowners unless the board regains compliance within 30 days. That means the community's premiums default to self-insurance, forcing an open audit. The panel murmured. Carol froze. Realization. Dawning that the trap was already sprung. Talbot nodded slowly. So you're saying, yes ma'am, until compliance is restored, every homeowner effectively becomes their own insured party. No board enforcement, no discretionary fines, just transparency. That was reversal number 1 in motion, the secret leverage fully activated. Carol's voice broke. You planned this. No, I said quietly. I prepared for it. The gavel hit wood. Hearing adjourned pending audit. Enforcement powers suspended. Outside, the humidity hit like a wall. Joe laughed, clapping me on the shoulder. You just turned their HOA into a democracy. Not yet, I said, but we're close. Over the next few days, the domino effect began. The insurer sent notice of audit cancellation. Too risky without compliance. The bank froze the HOA account pending signature verification. 2 more board members resigned, citing hostile environment. By August 18th, the Echo Pines HOA had collapsed in everything but name. Carol filed a complaint against me personally, defamation and interference, but it bounced back for lack of standing. At night, I'd sit on the porch again, grill sizzling, the air heavy with hickory smoke. No SUVs idling, no cameras snapping, just crickets in the lake. Then one evening, an email from Carol. You've ruined everything we built. Hope it was worth it. I typed back. It was never about ruining. It was about rebuilding. Still, I knew this wasn't over. Power doesn't surrender. It bargains. And somewhere under that anger, I sensed the beginning of negotiation. For those of you following, should HOA boards be allowed to operate without outside audits? Or should counties oversee them like public entities? Let me know below. You'd be surprised how many of these groups hide behind private corporation status to dodge scrutiny. The real showdown was coming, and this time, it wouldn't end in a hearing room. The negotiations started quietly. A folded note taped to my door, written in Carol's tidy cursive. Let's meet. Just us. No lawyers. The first week after the reform deal felt like waking from a long nightmare. The HOA website came back online, stripped clean of Carol's old decrees. Meeting minutes appeared in plain text. The once secret budgets were now public spreadsheets, complete with notes and signatures. I spent my mornings at the grill again, the smell of coffee mixing with cedar smoke. Neighbors began stopping by, people I'd barely spoken to before. Mrs. Ramirez brought fresh tomatoes. The Mitchells asked if we could restart the community picnic series. Even Carol showed up one afternoon carrying a folder of audit forms. We're doing it right this time, she said quietly. I nodded. Then it's working. The county completed its audit in late September. The findings were blunt but fair. $47,600 in misallocated funds over 5 years, 3 non-compliant contracts, and procedural violations. No criminal intent, but enough to mandate restitution and oversight. The headline read, Echo Pines HOA cleared after historic reforms. The night that report went public, the sky cracked open in rain. I stood under the porch light, binder in hand, watching sheets of water slide down the driveway. Every page inside that binder told the story of 2 years' worth of standing my ground. Emma joined me, wrapped in a blanket. So is it really over? Not over, I said. Just beginning. She smiled. Then maybe we can repaint the mailbox? Yeah, I said. Any color you want. The following week, the community held its first open election. No closed ballots, no hidden proxies. Every homeowner present, 1 vote each. Joe was elected treasurer by unanimous consent. Carol remained interim president through transition, quieter, humbler. As for me, they offered a seat on the new ethics committee. I accepted on one condition, that the committee's minutes always be public. Transparency isn't just protection, it's light as. It. At the next meeting, I watched neighbors who'd once avoided eye contact now laughing, arguing, planning, the sound of rebuilding. A local reporter pulled me aside afterward. Mr. Bennett, people online are calling this the Echo Pines Doctrine. Any advice for other communities fighting bad HOAs? I thought of Sarah's voice, that promise I made to Emma, the smell of toner and grass, the endless paperwork. Yeah, I said. Don't fight angry. Fight accurate. Paper beats power when it's stamped right. She smiled, jotting it down. Later that night, I recorded my final note for this story. If you believe I fought the right way, and this is how it should end, say a few words in the comments for your friend, your neighbor, or anyone who's ever been bullied by a rule book. Subscribe so you don't miss the next story we uncover. And share this one, because people need to see what accountability looks like when it's built by ordinary folks. That's on us. I closed the log, exhaled, and stepped onto the porch. The moon hung over the lake like a notary seal, silver, final, exact. Somewhere behind me, the porch light clicked off, but the reflection stayed bright on the water. In the months that followed, Echo Pines changed. Fines dropped by 82%. Dues stabilized. The HOA's new community charter required audits and rotating leadership. Even the insurer reinstated coverage with a community discount. The board commissioned a small plaque on the gazebo, rebuilt by its residents 2023. I grilled there once after the ceremony, just for old time's sake. Smoke curled into the air, steady and free. And as the last ember dimmed, I whispered to myself, half a smile on my lips, next case starts with a smell of smoke too. I stared at it for a long time before picking up my phone. Dana's voice was dry as sandpaper. You're not meeting alone. I won't, I said, but I need to hear what she wants. We chose neutral ground, the community gazebo overlooking the lake. Early evening light slid across the water, pink and orange like bruised glass. Carol arrived precisely on time, blazer off, sleeves rolled up. For once, she looked tired, human. You got what you wanted, she said, voice low. The board's finished. The insurance is gone. Everyone blames me. I folded my arms. You blamed yourself the minute you falsified filings. She exhaled, long and sharp. You don't understand. The developer left us broke. We were keeping the place afloat however we could. Maybe I crossed lines, but I wasn't stealing. I was trying to save it. That's not how saving works, I said. She met my eyes. So what do you want now? To sit on a pile of ashes? I looked out over the lake. The reflection of our cabins trembled on the ripples. I want a community that governs itself, not one run like a fiefdom. That means reform, transparency, elections, term limits, and an audit committee. Her jaw tightened. And you think I'll just hand it over? I think you don't have a choice. But I'm offering you a deal. Her eyebrows lifted. What kind of deal? Reversal number 2, I thought, though I didn't say it out loud. I'll withdraw my complaint and let you keep your title as interim president, I said. In exchange, you sign a consent agreement outlining reforms, term limits, open voting, financial disclosure, independent ethics oversight, and quarterly publication of all spending. The county signs as witness. She blinked, processing. You want me to codify my own surrender? I want you to codify a future. We stood there for a long moment, the lake swallowing the silence between us. Finally, she but write it up. 3 days later, at a special community meeting, Carol read the reform agreement aloud. Her voice trembled on the last clause. All enforcement and assessment power shall be contingent upon annual independent audit and publication of findings. The room erupted in applause. The county compliance officer, Hensley, stepped forward with a calm smile. This consent agreement meets statutory requirements under NC Community Governance Code, effective immediately. He stamped the paper with the official seal. Visual beat number 3, the seal pressing down, ink dark and final, the echo of the stamp ringing like closure. After the meeting, Carol approached me. You could have humiliated me again, she said. You didn't. Maybe you just needed reminding what leadership looks like, I said. She gave a small, tired laugh. You ever think of running for president? No, I said. I prefer grilling. Word spread fast. Local news ran a small piece. HOA reform deal signed after compliance scandal. Residents regain oversight. The story framed it as a rare example of community reconciliation. Emma printed the headline and taped it to the fridge. Mom would have liked this, she said softly. Yeah, I whispered. She would have. Joe stopped by that evening, bringing 2 folding chairs and a bottle of root beer. To peace, he said. Documented peace, I replied, clinking the bottles. The porch light glowed warm, and for the first time in years, I felt it wasn't a beacon of defiance. It was just home again. But before I sign off tonight, I've got a question for all of you watching. When HOA leaders abuse power, harassment, trespass, misuse of funds, what consequences should they face? Fines, removal, criminal charges? Drop your take in the comments, because reform doesn't end with paperwork. It starts when people speak. And tomorrow, I'd find out whether the reform I'd fought for could hold.